up, nah, I ain't a quitter. Toss me the ball, I'm a really big hitter. Big picture.
Hey guys, it's your girl Lynn here with another episode breakdown for The Ones Who Live, episode 6, The Last Time. Now do me a favor before we get started. If you're not a subscriber, please subscribe, hit that like button and the notification bell so you will be alerted whenever I drop new content. But enough with the housekeeping. I want to get into this episode, this amazingly great episode. Yes, I have a few things that I could nitpick, but we're not going to do that too much today. Admittedly, when I originally watched the episode, I couldn't figure out if I felt empty or not, but I figured it out. And fortunately for me, unlike Jadis and Thorne, I didn't figure it out too late. I'm happy. And I'm taking this happiness that Danai and Andy and Scott have given me. And Scott knows he's been in the doghouse with me since Carl was killed off. I mean, that was one of the most horrific decisions I've ever seen in TV history. Just horrible decision. But like I said, I'm not going to go too hard on Scott because he helped bring us The Ones Who Live. But this episode, when I went back and watched it a few times, I realized that it was just what we needed. I mean, it was a love story about Rick and Michonne. It's not like the other Walking Dead spinoffs. This is a freaking love story. And when you think about it that way, I mean, how can you not be happy and satisfied? Yes, we want a little bit more, but you know, it's always best to want a little bit more instead of someone or the TV show overstaying its welcome. So I think it ended perfectly. I think it ended the way it needed to end. But I want to talk about a few things. And my girl Thorne, I think that's the best place to start right now. Thorne is like that family member who had so much potential and could have done so many great things, but they just wasted it. And all you can do is just shake your head and let their fate have them. That's the kind of person that Thorne is. And it makes me sad that we didn't get more from her, that she just bought the Bill Kool-Aid that he was selling. And all I feel for self-preservation or to preserve her mind or to get her to focus on something other than the fact that she could never go home and she would definitely never see her loved one again. I mean, so I get that part, but come on, Thorne. I mean, I think the running theme of this show was believe a little longer, and I guess it was too long for Thorne. She didn't have the strength in her. She didn't have the backbone that Rick had in Michonne to believe a little longer. I mean, she truly had no hope, which is how Okafor basically found her, sitting on a sand mound, just waiting to die. So I think that's when she had truly already given up, and everything else that came after was just her going through the motions. And when she got the briefing, she found something that she could focus on, something that she thought she could believe in, and she took it and ran with it. I believe Okafor was wrong when it came to Thorne. I mean, she was clearly a B masquerading as an A. She wasn't strong mentally, she wasn't strong emotionally, or maybe at one point she had been. Maybe that's what he was seeing in her, but I think she was too far gone even when he found her. And he died too soon, and he wasn't able to bring it out of her. So when she gets this echelon briefing, she starts to act brand new. I mean, even coming to Rick's room, like she had never been to that room before, crying basically at his feet about the things that had been going on and what happened in Omaha. I mean, she just wanted to act like a brand new person. Like the years that they spent as friends and as comrades, it didn't really matter because now she was Command Sergeant Major and she had an important mission. Maybe that's something that she needed for her psyche, to give her something to live for, because she was dead inside and she had been dead inside since before Okafor met her, I believe. So she's easily swayed and she's clearly a B, and every person who put their hand on that sword and was taken in by this Kool-Aid that Jim Jones and a freaking beret was selling, they were B's, they were never A's. And that's made perfectly clear. And even when she's faced with, the fact that, Rick's love came back and she never stopped looking for him, she's still spouting this nonsense. In a dead world, love doesn't live, or something like that she was saying. Just complete nonsense. Like, she was trying her best to hold on to this. I thought that maybe Rick would have to be the one to put Thorne down, but it turns out it was Michonne, and I think that was fitting because they got to actually have a woman-to-woman talk. Thorne says, "You're the one he was always trying to run to. How did you find him?" And Michonne responds, "I never gave up. I never gave up myself, not like you." And I think that kind of hit Thorne hard because she did give up and she did stop trying, and it made her feel some type of way. And so she comes back with, "In a dead world, love is dead." That was the hope, or the thing that she was holding on to, that the love she had for this person that she had been trying to get back to, it didn't matter anymore. That was dead. All that mattered was the mission and the task at hand. But Michonne is right. Love doesn't die. True love doesn't die. And who knows, maybe Thorne didn't truly love the other person, or maybe she was so mentally and emotionally broken that she could not allow herself, just like Jadis. Jadis had every chance to have exactly what Michonne and Rick have. She had a chance to have that with Gabriel. I mean, he asked her to stay. And I just still can't believe that Gabriel this entire time was having these conversations with Jadis and didn't tell anyone. And we know that the final conversation he had with her, this was by the time that Rosita had already been dead for about a year. So when he asked her to come back to Alexandria, and giving her that ring was giving him some kind of hope and giving him something that he needed, because in actuality, he had feelings for her first before he got with Rosita. So apparently those feelings never left, and he was asking her, and not really begging her, but just pleading with her, just like Michonne pleaded with Rick, just come. Basically, just let me love you. Like Mario says, "You should let me love you." I think it's just really sad, the stories of Jadis and Thorne. I mean, Thorne's final words were, Bill was wrong. Okafor was right. You just have to never give up hope. And she learned that lesson too late. She could have, think about it, she could have probably left with Rick or helped them escape and went along with them, and maybe, just maybe, she would have been able to get home to Africa. I mean, Daryl made it all the way to Paris. There has to be a way. So it's just wasted talent. But enough about Thorne. I really wish her death had impacted me more, but it didn't. Like I stated in my reaction video, I felt like a conversation maybe should have been had between her and Rick, because she did consider Rick all she had left, the only family that she had in this broken world. So I really feel like it was kind of a missed opportunity there, but you know what? At the end of the day, it wasn't really needed, I guess. We got what we needed, and we'll talk about that reunion with RJ and Judith later. The next person I want to talk about is General Bill. Now, I was really excited to know that Terry O'Quinn was going to be in The Ones Who Live. But what I didn't know was how little he would be in the series. I was really hoping to get more of him. He was an awesome character, or he played an awesome character in John Locke on Lost. If you've never seen it, it's an amazing show. But Terry O'Quinn is a phenomenal actor, and I really wish we had gotten to see more of General Bill, but I understand that it was only 6 episodes. There's only so much you can do with the CRM and General Bill. I feel like I wanted to see more of him than Thorne. But when we did get to see him, and he did have more than like 2 lines, he gave a whole speech. I mean, this guy talked going on maybe 15 minutes of the episode, or even 20 if at most. And I just thought it was hilarious that a guy who always talks about this sword, and he's made over 2,000 soldiers swear on this sword that he picked up during a battle. He can't even use it effectively. I mean, the way he was swinging at Rick, it was absolutely ridiculous. But as far as his conversation or his debriefing or giving Rick this talk, we learned that his whole plan, which was his idea apparently, was to extract children from Portland, select children, 10% of the population of children in Portland, and bring them into the Civic Republic. Meanwhile, he was going to kill everyone they knew, everyone in their city, and it was all on some ridiculous attempt to preserve the CRM for years to come. He said that the scientists, or what they had gathered all of the information, humanity, or what was left of life, would only have about 14 years left on the planet, and then the dead would completely take over. So his solution was take all the kids, or 10% of the kids from Portland, then run amok and run over every other little community or settlement out there in America, take all of their resources, kill them. So Rick ended up being right when he was having that argument with Michonne. The CRM was going to come for their community one day, and they were going to kill them. So he was right on that. So I'm glad that kind of came back to, Rick's fear wasn't in vain. He had a very real, healthy, and legitimate fear of the CRM. Then we find out that it just amazes me how someone like General Bill can be so similar to the Hitlers and the Jim Jones of the world. Like, you think this is a good plan? Like, what went wrong in your life? What is loose in your head? You think that killing basically most of humanity is going to bring the world back? Like, what happens if maybe a disease of some kind strikes the CRM or Philadelphia, where the city is? What happens then if everyone there is sick? Then humanity is truly done with. So his plan, it just made zero sense. But and I also like the callbacks in the episode when Rick was remembering, or Michonne was remembering different things that happened in the past. It was always related to the moment that they were in. Like, for instance, when General Bill asked Rick, "What's the worst thing you ever did to someone to protect someone you care about or you love?" And Rick immediately goes to the throat bite out, like what were they called? The claimers. He bit the guy's throat out to protect his son and protect Michonne and Daryl, really. And I think that's the first thing that really hit everyone's mind, at least mine, when General Bill asked that question. I mean, it has to be the throat incident. I mean, because that was savage. And then Rick is listening to this moron compare that to him slaughtering numbers, or not a number probably that can't even be numbered, of people just to get their resources. There is no comparison. Rick did that to save his son from bad people. You are going out and killing innocent people. You've already killed millions of innocent people just so you could preserve your way of life. I mean, we've seen this different times throughout history. Like I said, with Hitler, you see it with other just insane leaders of the world, just slaughtering innocents for no reason. I mean, look at Caligula. This man would kill you if you had a better head of hair than he did. So he needed to die, but I just wish we had gotten more. I wish his death had impacted me more than it did, because say it had been Okafor who had been Rick's saving grace, and maybe Rick had to put him down, that would have hurt more. I mean, Okafor was in one episode, and it hurt me to see him die, and die at the hands of Michonne and her friend. So I just think, General Bill, I mean, if they were going to give us a fight scene with him, they could have at least had the man pretend like he knew how to use a sword. But the sword did end up in the right hands of a person who was deserving in Michonne. At first I thought, that she took that sword on instead of her katana. But at the end of the episode, you see that her katana is on her back. So she obviously went back to maybe the hiding spot that she had near the getaway boat that Rick left her. Maybe that's where it was. But she did have it at the end of the episode. And I was also a little worried that when Bill offered Rick to bring in his family and anyone he cared about or loved into the CRM to protect them for what was coming, Rick, it's like he pulled the knife back. So I'm like, oh my God, is he contemplating this? I think a few people were wondering, is he contemplating this seriously? But really what he was doing is he was getting that knife ready to just throw it. So, of course, we also get another flashback to General Bill telling Rick on the bench, you don't have to answer. I just want to look in your eyes, because he's good at reading people. He's good at reading faces. He's good at reading eyes. And when he saw in Rick's eyes the intention to kill, he tried to grab the gun, but it was not fast enough. Rick threw that knife, and it was all she wrote. And this is just another thing. This is the shit they do. And they said it twice in this episode, Michonne and Rick. This is the shit they do. You try them, and that's it. You try to hurt innocents, that's it. Like, you're done. You're dead. They're not going to stand for this nonsense that you're throwing out. So Okafor ended up having a great impact on Rick in the end. And I really love the fact that Okafor is really the last name that General Bill mentions, because he knew that Rick was influenced by Okafor, but also he was influenced by Michonne, but Bill doesn't know that. Okafor's plan came to fruition. He basically got his dying wish that the CRM would stop the atrocity and help the people instead of destroy the people. And we also get a call back, save the people from the people, which is the sign that Michonne read in the woods when they were walking to the cabin in episode 5. I think it was very symbolic. I don't know if they did this on purpose, that it was Michonne who killed Jadis with that axe to the gut. She basically killed her, wounded her. She ended up dead. It was Michonne and Nat who killed Okafor. It was Michonne who killed Thorne. So she killed every link that Rick had to that place. Every link he had to the CRM. Every link that could keep him there or bind him there. She destroyed it like the queen that she is. So I don't know if they did that on purpose, but I noticed that she cut him free from the nonsense of the CRM. She cut him free from every link. And I feel like, Thorne, I really wish, I'm not even going to talk about that again. The conversation didn't happen. It didn't need to happen between Rick and Thorne, but she did what she had to do to free her man. I think it was really fitting that it was Michonne who decided that they needed to go back, not just for the dossier, but to save the world. They knew the CRM was up to something with this echelon briefing, and they were right. They went back. They did what they had to do. Although I think it moved a little bit too fast. It was a little bit too easy, but you know what? I'm not going to nitpick. I'm happy that the CRM, as far as the higher ups, are done with, but that also brings to mind something that General Bill said during his conversation with Rick. He said that they had operatives all over the world. So it's not just America. They've sent spies everywhere. So I'm wondering with this new Daryl Dixon, the Book of Carol season that's coming up, if the CRM is not going to be in play there. Because think about it, like these spies, they have to be maybe higher ups as well, or maybe someone who among them has leadership abilities and who will carry on the plan that General Bill started. And what about General Kublek? I mean, Jadis locked her up. We haven't seen her since I think the last episode of The World Beyond. So what happens to her now that the CRM or the council has taken control of the military? Does she get let out? And if she's let out, does she take over the military somehow? Who knows? But I feel like that could be a new series in and of itself. And maybe, who knows, maybe the the council asked Rick Grimes to come back. Hey, head the military. You were here for years. You know how this works. You can make this better. And Rick, of course, along with Michonne, any chance to save the world, they have to do it. It's just embedded in their DNA. Everyone in their group, really, from Daryl to Carol, King Ezekiel, even Princess. Princess, we didn't get to see too much of her, but she was a phenomenal character who just fit right in. They have it in their DNA to save the world and to do whatever it takes. So we'll see maybe in the future what happens with that. There are a lot of things I loved about this episode, namely the flashbacks during Rick's conversation with Bill. The one thing that stood out the most was the individual shots of almost everyone he left behind. Even Negan. We didn't get to hear Michonne fill him in on everyone they lost or how things had been. And I'm sure that in the future we will get other reunions, that we crave as fans. The biggest ones being between Rick and Daryl and Rick and Morgan. Because Morgan, as far as we know, he's still looking for Rick. I'd love to see Rick and Negan come face to face one last time. I mean, the only other character from the Walking Dead universe I'm hoping to see at some point is Silas. I noticed that, like myself, there were other reactors or other fans who were commenting on a scene when Michonne found the dossier and she started to rip up the dossier, and she had so much emotion while she was doing it, and I felt like in the moment, like that was a stupid thing to do, but again, with reflection on the episode, I realized that she was just so angry and so enraged with what Jadis had done and what she had put her and her family through all these years, that it was like she was ripping Jadis up. Like the last thing that Jadis had to say on this earth, she's just ripping it up and she's trying to destroy it, just put it in little pieces. I mean, of course she had to pick it all up, stuff it in her pocket. This is the first time you saw her really get really worked up since episode 4. And she was only worked up for that moment. And I think it's because she was just reflecting on everything that she's been through. And it was because of this person whose room she's standing in. And like Jadis, the room was a freaking mess. I mean, a hot mess. I don't know how she lived like that. It also didn't escape my notice that Jadis had not one, not two, not three. She had so many paintings and drawings of Gabriel all around her room. Like, it's no wonder she kept going back. Like, she was surrounding herself with this man. She even took this man's last name when she went into the CRM, Stokes. I didn't realize that, or I didn't notice that until I started watching The Ones Who Live again. And I think I actually knew that back in The World Beyond, because that's not her last name, that's Gabriel's last name. So you had this much love for this man and this much admiration for this man, and you still couldn't just let yourself be happy and throw yourself, into the life that I believe she truly wanted. She truly wanted to be with Gabriel. She just couldn't bring herself to let it happen, which is really sad. But I mean, I think it was just Michonne's way of just destroying every last piece of Jadis and everything that she had to say before she left this earth. And honestly, I think Jadis was taking one last shot at Michonne because of where she hid that dossier. We all know what happened with the cat back when they first met Jadis and her garbage people. Michonne liked that cat, and she also hit on Rick in front of Michonne and had the nerve to ask her if she cared if she bed him after everything was over. Like, you already know this woman can't stand you. And then you leave the dossier that could destroy them and their family inside of a cat's rear end. A statue that you created and you know she liked. I mean, I think that was just one last shot that Jadis was taking at Michonne. Like, you'll never guess where I headed kind of thing. But I don't know, maybe that was an accident, or maybe Denai and the rest of the writers put that in there as, basically a FU from Jadis to Michonne. So it's pretty funny, and it's so like her if that was the intention. I really love that we got the call back to Nat in regards to how Michonne knows how to rig all of these grenades to blow up the CRM or to blow up everyone who was at this summit. Because, you know, she spent a year with this man. I knew there was no way she didn't learn some tricks from him. And unfortunately, just like Okafor, I mean, that was another character I wanted to see more of. And I feel like I'm not the only one who thinks that way when it comes to Nat and Okafor, but more so Nat. Because Nat was just one of those characters who they just appear and they just fit right into the group. So I really am sorry that we won't get to see more of him. And he was a phenomenal character, probably the best character I've seen since the introduction of King Ezekiel and Princess. I'm not counting Negan because he's in a league of his own, but also the Croat. The Croat was pretty good, but Nat, he was a character who came out of nowhere, and I'm truly going to miss him, even though he was in just one episode. He just made a really big impact, and I think that's credit to the actor who plays the character of Nat. And he played it so well, and everything he said, every emotion he felt, you felt it too. So, I mean, that really hurt when I saw him die. Same thing, but Okafor was more shocked, but Nat, that hurt. It really did. And I don't know if you guys felt the same way. Let me know in the comments about the death of Nat. I wish we had gotten to see more of Nat, but if you think about it, the way the episodes progressed, if Nat had survived and been brought into the CRM, it would have made it more difficult for Rick and Michonne to escape, because it wouldn't have been a love story about the two of them anymore. It would be about a group trying to escape, which is what the original Walking Dead series was, a group trying to make it together. And that's not what The Ones Who Live was about. This is a love story between two incredible characters. And now for the piece de la resistance, the reunion between Rick and Michonne and their kids. This is something that the Walking Dead fans have been fiending for, especially the Michonne fans. I mean, we were so excited for this reunion, and for a while there, I thought, you know, there is no way they can wrap everything up at the CRM and get back to their kids in 6 episodes, let alone 1. They did it in 1 episode, and after, you know, contemplation and reflection, watching the episode about a gazillion times after it aired, I'm at peace with the way things played out, you know. Rick finally got to meet his son, and not to take anything away from Judith, I mean, but this is Rick's son. This is his blood, you know, and he had no idea for 8 years almost that this kid even existed. And the way that, you know, his persona or his demeanor when he first came upon his kids, you know, the kids run to their mama, you know, you got to give mama some love first. The nervousness, even when he was on, you know, the flight to see his family. And that also brings me back to, I wonder where they were, because the last we saw, Judith and RJ were in the Commonwealth. So maybe when Michonne called Judith on the walkie, Judith told them, you know, we're not in Alexandria, we're actually in a place called the Commonwealth. So that's where they were. So that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking that they were in the Commonwealth with King Ezekiel, because they had like a whole life there. They built a whole life there with Daryl and Carol and the King and going to school and everything. So I doubt they would want to leave the Commonwealth and go back to crummy Alexandria. I mean, I wouldn't want to leave the Commonwealth. So I believe they were in the Commonwealth. That's where they met up. And it wasn't fear. Rick was just really nervous. I mean, he had a lot of anxiety, and I'm sure he has a lot of PTSD as well. But I think what was hitting him in that moment was anxiety and excitement all at the same time, to see his kids again and for them to all be a family again and together under one roof once more. It had all just gotten to him, like when he was first with Michonne in episode 4. In that intimate moment, it really got to him, and he started, you know, freaking out, and Michonne had to calm him. But thankfully this time he kept, you know, himself as calm as could be as the kids hugged their mom. And Judith, she has gotten so big, and Michonne even said something about that, like, why are you so big? And it was just great seeing Judith reunite with Rick, because she was like, what, 4 when Rick was taken? So, I mean, we're not going to mess with the timeline. We all know they look a little older than they should be in actuality, but that's okay. So, I just love that, again, with the never giving up and the believing. It's played out in the last conversation that we see them have on screen. You know, Judith says, I knew you were out there. I just didn't want you to be alone. And Rick says, you know, I thought I was, but I know I wasn't. And now I know I wasn't. And then you have RJ telling Rick, you know, asking Rick, you know, are you the brave man? And he says, yeah, but maybe you could just call me Dad. And even he says, I knew you'd come back because I believed. And of course you get the big family hug, which was just like you're stoned if it doesn't melt you. Like I tried to keep it together in my reaction video, but yeah, bawling tears afterwards. Like, it was so beautiful, that reunion. And if we don't get to see them on screen again, like I said, I don't think that's necessarily going to be the case. I think we'll see them all again in another series. But even if we never did, I think it ended perfectly. This was a love story between Rick and Michonne and their quest to get back to their family, their children. I mean, I don't know what else you could ask for. My closing thoughts on this series as a whole, I mean, absolutely superb job. My favorite episode was 4, which is the one Danai Gurira wrote. And I see why it was getting so many, you know, raves and applause from the critics who got to see the episodes early. It was truly the best of the 6. And it helped us get into the minds and the psyches of each character in Rick and Michonne, and the way, you know, that it was set up. It was like a stage play, which she is a playwright, so it made sense. And it didn't feel forced. It felt completely natural all the way through, with the highs and lows of their emotions and their mental states changing. It was just amazing. Like I said, I hope we get to see these characters again and maybe have all of the characters converge, including Negan, in one last hurrah. Maybe, just maybe, like I said, the CRM, somehow their original plan is awakened and there's a threat looming and the gang has to come back together again and help each other out. And the way I see it, if I was one of the writers, I would probably suggest that shot from season 7, or was it season 8? I think it was season 7, episode 1, after Negan killed Glenn and Abraham. So at the end of that first episode in season 1, we see a possible future where Abraham and Glenn lived. Abraham's married to Sasha, she's pregnant. Glenn is raising his kid with Maggie, and they're just having dinner around this table. So I would love to see the entirety of the Walking Dead universe just wrap up with a scene with our original crew, you know, and Daryl and Carol and Maggie and Rick and Michonne, their families, and even Negan, all at a table, just looking around in the final montage, talking and just living the good life. And like Rick, if it just ends there, we can just believe that it ended and they lived happily ever after. No one ever gets bit. No one else dies. They just live the good life. But, you know, I dream. Alright guys, I'll be ending it here. Thank you so much for joining me. I'll also be doing reactions to Invincible Season 2. Star Trek Discovery, the last season drops on April 4th. I'm also going to be doing reactions to The Last Airbender and House of the Dragon when that premieres, I believe in June. And then right after that, of course, we have Daryl Dixon, The Book of Carol, and of course Dead City, Cobra Kai. So if you guys are down for any of those shows, please hit that subscribe button so you'll be notified anytime I drop a new video. As always, I'm your girl Lynn, and I'm out.